Orangutans are only found in two areas of the world, Borneo on the right and Sumatra on the left. In Sumatra, by far the best place to see them is in the small village of Bukit Lawang. This is on the edge of the huge Gunung Leuser National Park, almost 10,000 square kilometres. What follows is the orangutans that I managed to film during a 28-day stay at Bukit Lawang. These are presented in simple chronological order. This is a typical forest edge at Bukit Lawang. Those Thomas's leaf monkeys are easy to see, but orangutans, although much larger, are extremely challenging to spot. For example, I myself would never have noticed these busily chewing jaws, barely visible through a masking curtain of leaves. So, although I normally pride myself on finding all my own animal subjects, for the orangutans I had to depend on an experienced guide who'd grown up with them. This is the very first subject that he found for me. A female and her well-grown baby munching on the leaves of a tree. In orangutans, each offspring spends up to 7 or 8 years with its mother before leaving and going its own way. This leads to very low rates of reproduction compared with, for example, monkeys. However, partly to compensate for this, the adults are very long-lived and have few enemies apart from man. Although these two spent hours chewing away busily on these leaves, this is not actually the preferred food for orangutans. They like fruit far more. But that tends to be seasonal, and so it's not always available. So leaves are a handily available fallback. Suddenly the rain got worse. And then worse again. Initially, it didn't seem to make much difference to the orangutans. They just kept on feeding. But finally the youngster just got fed up with getting wet and cuddled up to the protective bulk of its mother. But not for long. As the rain slackened a little, off it went to feed again. It was only now that I realised that a second adult female was present, just out on the left. A few days later, thankfully this time with the sun shining, my guide found me this female. Her baby, with the punk hairstyle, was very much younger, probably only a few weeks old. Because of this, she was obviously feeling very protective. She didn't like us being so close, so off she went. After I waited out several rainy days, at last the sun shone on a new group of orangutans. As before, a well-grown juvenile was present, but this is not the same one that you've already seen. First of all, it settled comfortably in the fork of a tree, and it spent some time idly toying with a twig. Meanwhile, its mother was relaxing on a branch, munching on a palm fruit held in her left hand. Finally, Mum finishes off her meal and throws away the inedible parts. The baby was still enjoying mouthing twigs with its teeth. Mum just kept on chewing. That's what you have to do when your food is so tough. Here's another of the 5 orangutans that were present in this relatively small group of trees. It's busy pulling off palm fruits and feeding them into its mouth. But after a brief taste, if they're not ripe enough, it flings them away and tries another. And another. The problem is, they're not really ripe enough to eat, which is why it's being so choosy. After a lengthy visual inspection, it finally selects one and bites it. Finally, one of the 2 juveniles present, and there were 2 mothers present too, decided to move off. Monkeys can span even large gaps between branches by simply jumping, but orangutans can't do that. Instead, they have to reach out and grasp with their hands and legs. This bendy sapling acts as a springboard to project the juvenile towards an adjacent palm leaf. Then, using all 4 limbs, it can cross the gap. A minute or so later, Mum follows, using precisely the same route. She's a lot heavier than her offspring, and so the bendy sapling sags even lower. But then it bounces back and enables her to grab hold of the same palm frond. This style of movement does look rather slow and awkward, but when they really need to, orangutans can move at remarkable speeds through the treetops. Such as this male on another day who didn't like the look of us and rushed off. Fortunately, a couple of days later, my guide located this female with a large baby. This particular juvenile spent some considerable time carefully selecting the most palatable leaves, mostly the youngest. Watch how the flexible lips delicately direct each leaf into the mouth. On my final day in Bukit Lawang, my guide really triumphed. He located a group of 3, including this female with a tiny baby. She's using her powerful teeth to strip bark off a liana. Previous studies of orangutans have shown that bark is not a favourite food. It lies third after fruits and leaves. They particularly resort to bark when fruits are in short supply. In fact, wild orangutans have been seen feeding on more than 300 different kinds of foodstuffs. These include fungi, flowers, insects and honey. Like most baby primates, this one's in a playful mood. It begins to toy with a strip of bark dangling from its mother's mouth. This also helps the baby to begin learning what is and what is not edible, although at this stage it only feeds on its mother's milk. By the way, if you're wondering what's calling in the background, it's male cicadas. And this pleasantly domestic scene was my last view of orangutans at Bukit Lawang.